If you can win your evening and you can win your mornings, then you're going to win your life. And it comes with discipline. And it's not that you're missing out on stuff. You actually end up with more time to do the stuff you want. And you don't have FOMO when you're doing it.
Welcome to the Raquel Show. This podcast is for entrepreneurs who want to play bigger in business and in life. Today, my special guest is someone I've known for over a decade and is like a brother to me. He's a thought leader, a sales coach who's generated more than $250 million in sales, who helps ambitious entrepreneurs build booming businesses. Welcome to the show, Vikram.
Wait, that's me?
It is you.
Can't believe we've known each other for a decade. That's amazing.
Yeah. Can you believe that? And I want to jump right into it. I've known you for a long time, and you're one of those people that is constantly learning, growing, and who isn't afraid to invest with some of the biggest coaches in the industry. Yeah. I'm curious to know, where did you develop that mindset? And how did you adopt that mindset to just keep investing?
So I'm not a big fan of school. I always say I was lucky to be a C student that was just blessed enough to cheat off the A student, so I didn't get an F. And when I was young, I remember my dad's a doctor, and he's into wellness and he's into anti-aging. And, so Raquel and I, we always talk about different health gadgets that I'm looking at or that she's looking at, and vitamins and supplements, because your energy is super important. But I remember when we were young, people used to tease him because he got into MLMs, and he was doing this thing called KM, which was a supplement. And he got to the top, and we started listening to people like Jim Rohn, and we started listening to people that were part of the company that were speakers that they had brought in. And, I remember we just listening to these really just awesome humans. And it was so much fun because their stories were cool. They always had great energy. They were funny, but then they got serious. I would cry. And I said, school never interested me because I didn't care about what boat Christopher Columbus came on or what spice route he was on. But I always asked my dad when I was a kid, I'm like, Dad, how much money did you make? Dad, how much money did you make? And when my dad said, I made $100, but we're driving a Mercedes, I'm like, that doesn't add up, Pops. I can see that this doesn't add up. But I knew that if I kept doing what he did, which was listening to the tapes, right? Just keep listening to the tape, just keep listening to the tape, keep listening to the tape. And then it became CDs and then audios. I knew that I would excel. And so I wasn't a big fan of studying school. Even I got an MBA. I didn't really learn anything. The one thing I remember from my MBA, outside of a few really great friends, was that our marketing teacher said, Apple is not a technology company. You're mistaken. He said, every other company out there is a technology company. Apple's a marketing company. It's an innovative company that happens to sell technology to you. He said, that's why people line up for days to buy an iPhone or an iPad or whatever the hot item was. This was, 10 years ago that I did my MBA. And that's when an iPhone was super big. People would line up for hours and hours and hours to get one. He said, Steve Jobs was an innovative thinker. To me, I was like, okay, I don't like formal education, but I'm a nerd. I love learning. And so when I got into real estate and where we met in our first ecosystem that we merged in, it was always, how do you use other people's knowledge to condense time? Right. And you can get it from books, which takes a lot of time, or you can pay somebody and have all of their experience dropped into you. And then they're there to hold you accountable. They're there to hold your hand. They're there to kick you in the butt when they need to. Right. But they're there to help you do the things that you need to do. So I guess I learned at a young age from my dad that the people that win fast are the people that are willing to do the things that others aren't. And that's by constantly educating. Even when my dad would be in his bathroom, as little kids, he would always have a stack of journals next to the toilet. And he would go in there and when he sat down on the toilet, he didn't turn on the TV. He would just sit there and read journals. And he would cut out articles. And even my uncle said, he said, when we were young, And this is like 1989, 1995, when my uncle worked for my dad. He went through all of my dad's filing cabinets and filed all the articles that my dad had ripped out of the journals. And so he was telling us these stories as we were getting older. And I was like, you got to be a forever learner. So I guess it was just ingrained. Like one of the good habits of my dad was you never stop learning. And even to this day, like our family is really big on education, but not necessarily the traditional education. Like I don't think any of his kids are super geniuses, but I think they're all really smart.
Yeah, definitely. I love how you adopted, learning, because if you're not learning, you're not growing, you're dying, they say, right?
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes when we look at people to invest in and collect time, there comes a point where it might be a scary thing for most entrepreneurs.
If it's not scary, you're not looking at the right person.
So talk about that, because you've invested in some big coaches that are not cheap. And there must have been a reason why you invested in them versus going the Google way of trying to learn everything or from a friend or an accountability group that like a bunch of you entrepreneurs got together.
Accountability groups never last because you're not paying those people. So I have an accountability group, but we decided yesterday that instead of us doing a weekly call, we're just going to, if somebody needs something, they're going to call a meeting. Within 72 hours, we have to find time to make ourselves available. That's the rule. So it's not a stuck meeting on our calendar that everybody misses. It's not like a mastermind meeting where you pay to be in it. It's just, hey, we're going to do it. These are the 4 people that are in it. We're not going to add anybody else to it. If you can't make it to 2 consecutive meetings, like you're just gone and we'll replace you with somebody else. But we're not going to hold meetings like every week. We're going to meet at 4:00 and that lasts for 3 weeks and then it stops. Oh, I had my kids. Oh, I had my dog. Oh, I had diarrhea. Like all sorts of crap comes up, right? And people just drop off and then the group dissipates and you're like, okay, well, that sucked. So when it comes to hiring people, you want to hire people that have been through what you're going through. And what I found, Raquel, because I've hired people like Bedros Keuilian, who's no longer taking on new clients, but it was $50,000. And I hired him in a time when I was running a business that was not making any money. And I was funneling money into the business. I was in a new stage of life. I've had 9 businesses in my life. All businesses scale the same way, right? They have the same systems, right? You just market something differently, but the same funnels, the same lead generation, right? You have to have salespeople, you have to have a team, you have to have systems, you have to have processes, right? Checks and balances. It's all the same. It's just one's a cell phone, one's knives, one's real estate, one's coaching. It doesn't really matter, but it's all the same stuff. And so when I look to hiring somebody, I want somebody who's emotionally been through some of the stuff I've been through. Right now, that doesn't mean that you have to have been through the same stuff that I've been through to be a client of mine, but I want somebody who, if I'm reaching out to him and I'm like, yeah, when I was a little kid, I got molested. And he's like, been there. Or I've lived in the back of a cell phone store. And he's like, I went through dumpsters to get food. We have the same like feeling of like, oh, okay, cool. And this is where you're at. Okay, great. We can put that to the side, Vikram, or we can talk about it. Whatever you want to do. So I hire people that I've done research on, people that I admire, people that I would want to be like, people that I would want to emulate, and people who I trust with telling personal stories to. Because if you can't trust that person with something intimate that's going on in your life, because a lot of things with entrepreneurs are like, we are cut from a weird cloth and we do weird stuff. And sometimes we need somebody who we don't want to share with our significant others with. And then it's like, okay, what's their business look like? What's their family life look like? Right? Maybe I'll model their business, but their family, I'll have a different model. And then for this, I'll have a different model and that'll have a different model. So you have 4 or 5 different models, but you have to pay to play. And if you pay somebody like 3 to 5, 800, $1,000 a month, you're going to miss calls. You're going to miss appointments. I mean, if you're making $10,000 a year, you're probably not going to, but if you're making a couple $100,000, it's only $200. No, that's like a dinner. But if you're paying somebody $50,000 for 12 calls and you miss one of those calls, you're like, yo, I need to make that up, please. Like, and if they say no, it's not like you missed your personal training session and it was, a $22 late fee.
Mm-hmm.
So when you pay to play, you pay attention. And if you're not willing to pay attention, I just ask, why not? What are you scared of? Are you scared of wasting your time, your money, or your energy? And if you're scared to waste your time, why? Because you don't feel like you're going to put in the effort. Are you scared of the money? Well, if you're scared of the money, then that's perfect. Go. But why are you scared of the money? Because you're not willing to put the time and the energy on what your coach says, because you know that you're the type of person who doesn't typically follow through in the past. Well, that's costing you leakage in your business. And I would ask you the question, how many millions of dollars have you lost, or hundreds of thousands of dollars have you lost because of these leakages in your personal self-mastery? So like, so like when people are like, oh, I can't afford you, Vikram, I'm like, okay, you're probably right. You probably can't afford me at the moment. Your credit card can afford me. But let me ask you, if you were doing all the things you were supposed to do in your life, you wouldn't be talking to me. And you would be able to afford me at the drop of a hat. You would have investments, you would have property, real estate, crypto. You'd have time for your health. You wouldn't be 250 pounds. I love you when I say that. I love you when I say that, but Raquel and I just spent 20 minutes talking about red light therapy, saunas, hyperbaric chambers, our HRV, our Whoop straps, her health and wellness coach, my health and wellness coach, my dad, our supplements. Like, we spent 20 minutes talking about that prior to this. And we both have large budgets that we put into our health.
Mm-hmm.
And so if
there is no wealth.
Right. And it's like, if you are not taking care of your body because you don't have the time, and then you tell me or Raquel or somebody like us that you don't have the money or the resources to hire us, let me tell you, because I've owned a health and wellness store or business. Raquel, I've seen people that are in their 50s that look like they're in their 80s. And I've seen people who are in their 80s that will whoop the snot out of those people in their, like I would be scared to go up against them in a competition of anything, because they're like so physically fit. They're so disciplined. And guess what? They have the most free time.
Oh my gosh. So you dropped a lot of nuggets in there that you got to like pay to play. When you pay attention, and it's more of a mindset thing. Cause you even said it earlier, is like you invested $50,000 in Bedros,
right,
when you really didn't have the money.
No, I was paying off credit cards for a hot minute from that one.
But there was something key in there, is that you believed in yourself, that you were going to show up for those
right.
coaching calls, those 12 coaching calls, and you were going to take action and do it.
Right. Well,
right?
I owed almost $300,000 at that time in credit cards. And I had a friend give me an offer with a $250,000 salary, a $50,000 signing bonus, and upside commission based off of what the team was going to generate. So it probably would have been a $400,000 first year, because I did over $1 billion in real estate. And I said, no. And I called Bedros and I'm like, yo, B, I need to hire you.
That's so good. You talk about debt, and there's a lot of people that invest in coaches that kind of run their debt, and it's almost like the new student loans.
Yeah, do it.
Okay. So keep doing it. Keep getting in debt. And then when does it come to a point that you have too many coaches? Because I see that also, is that people have several coaches and they don't know who to listen to.
Get people that are part of similar ecosystems. So like I had Bedros and then Sharon, right? And then one of Bedros's coaches I worked with, they're all part of this similar ecosystem, same thought beliefs, but they see different little patterns that you're doing, right? So try to stay within familiar ecosystems. Now you can get people that are outside, but you have to pick one pony for the one race.
Yeah.
So if you have like a mindset coach or a high performance coach that's there, just use them for mindset and high performance. If you have a sales coach, you have to trust that sales coach is the right person. I was in a mastermind with Bedros a couple of weeks ago, and Bedros has built multiple 8-9 figure businesses. And the guy says exactly what you said. He's like, well, let me think about it. And Badris goes, think about what? He's like, well, I have to think about it because I heard from you to do this kind of follow-up, from this guy to do this type of follow-up, from this guy to do this type of follow-up. He said, well, which person is the most successful out of all the people? He says, you are. He says, well, I'd fire the other two, listen to me. And then when I no longer can add value into your life, go hire the other people.
That's so good.
You can't have too many coaches unless they're all doing something different. But there also comes an implementation problem. So if you have too many coaches, you're not going to implement. So I had a bunch. I was the coach junkie and I had to let a couple go. And it's not that you can't go back to those people at a later date, but you have to pick the person right now that's going to help you take the most amount of action to put money into your account. Or if you already have enough money, how to put time into your life. And if you already have the time and the money, then how to have more magical moments.
Yeah.
So what is the purpose?
I love it. So what has investing in mentors, coaches, and masterminds done for you and your business?
I mean, 4 years into real estate, we were doing 7 figures almost.
Amazing.
And that was in a brand new, and I don't say that to impress you. I say that to impress upon you. It's possible, right? 9 months into our coaching business, we're billing, multiple 6 figures. And our goals for this for this 2022 year, 7 figures in billables, right? We're thinking about how to do events. We're thinking about how do we create evergreen webinars and things of that nature. And none of this stuff I would have known had I not been a part of multiple different groups that were teaching me with people that were doing 8, 9, 10 figure businesses. You and I connected from a coaching ecosystem. We lost contact for a few years and then we reconnected randomly through Instagram. And I was like, oh my God, it's Raquel. No beats were skipped. And now we're part of an ecosystem together and I get to learn from you. You get to learn from me. When I need help, I can call you. I can call one of the other people in the community. You don't just 4 years ago, I put $20,000 into cryptocurrency. Because my friend's like, yo, dude, just put a couple bucks in there. And I was like, all right, I'll put 20 grand. That's like 5x return compared to anything else that I owned. So that's the power of an ecosystem. Like today I was on a meeting from a friend that I met through Tony Robbins as a platinum partner. That was a, $150,000 investment plus or minus 50,000. And we're talking about doing NFT events and virtual events in the metaverse with tokens and tokenizing the whole thing. And it's like blew my mind away, like that we could mint our own little world for our coaching ecosystems. And I would have never known that if I didn't hang out with these types of people, because people that pay money in one area, they pay money in other areas to learn about different things that you and I just don't have the time. I mean, Raquel, you run 18 hours a day.
I wish I did.
Between your kids, your businesses, your family life, your workout, like you don't sit down until you go to sleep. And then when you go to sleep, your brain's still working on overdrive. And so being able to connect with these types of people, and then you say, okay, coach, like I heard 36 different things from all these amazing people. I want to do them all. And he or she goes, all right, little rabbit, you're going to burn out and that little turtle is going to pass you. So let's pick one lane, stick with it for 90 days. If that doesn't work, then we'll pivot to something else.
I think the big lesson here as you're speaking is pay to play. There's a reason why people are in these groups. And in these groups, it'll expose you to different ways of doing business.
Yeah.
And the caliber of people in these masterminds or in these groups or in this type of coach that I would say are high ticket coaching is what we would call it, right?
Right.
They actually can expose you to a lot of different things that you wouldn't have had you not pay to play.
I mean, Raquel, just, what's high ticket to me is different than what's high ticket to you, which is different than what's high ticket to somebody starting their career. You have to find somebody or a group that you one, it's like heart-centered, right? Towards your heart. Like you feel good going there. You feel safe. You feel comfortable. You feel like they actually care about me. And then you have to make sure that you find people that have been through what you do. So it's
exactly
easy to become a coach. It's easy to become a coach, right? Like anybody on Instagram can go and put, I'm a coach.
Correct.
Right. I know this gal, she's like, I think I'm going to be a life coach. I'm like, but you haven't really experienced a lot of life. She's like, yeah, but I've done enough and I think I could help people. And I'm like, okay, why?
Yeah.
You've never sat in a seminar. You and I have sat in hundreds of days of seminars. Each year I commit 21 to 30 days of the year to be in live events.
Yeah.
Right. Like it keeps my energy, my education, it keeps my pencil sharp.
Yeah. It's one of those things that if you're going to invest in a coach, find somebody who's, like you said earlier, who's done it before you, who has the stats, who actually has built a business. And it's even better if they built multiple businesses or 8 or 9, because like you said, it collapses time, but they're a stat and they have experience and they have information. When you hire the wrong coach, they say that you get information that can clog your mind, that could be deformation.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm a believer that sometimes we need to get punched in the mouth every now and then, because it makes us better students of the game that's being played out there. I mean, every day you go out, you're in a boxing rink. It doesn't mean you have to get bloody and knocked out, but every day you're going out there. It's not a fight, because I don't like to use that energy, but you got to come correct. This is a game and you want to win. And sometimes you got to pick the wrong property on the monopoly board. And every now and then you get knocked down and you got to file bankruptcy. And that's part of the game, right? Like that's part of the game, but you come out stronger, right? You don't give up because you got knocked down. Imagine if people gave up because they fell on their bikes, when they're kids. Like how much joy would they lose out on? The thing is that there's no perfect coach. There's no perfect human being. There's no perfect consultant or mentor. There's no perfect CEO or leader. There's great ones, and then there's extraordinary ones, and then there's crappy ones. And guess what? At some point, you're going to have each of them. But you don't quit just because you got a bad one, and you don't quit because you had a good one. Yeah. It's just part of the game. And over time, it's going to average itself out to being either above the line or below the line. But if you keep picking the wrong people, that's your fault. And I think you can learn stuff from everybody.
Yeah. I think over time, you start to figure out what you like in a coach and how you like to be coached, and you get closer to what you want and what you don't want.
And you got to be willing to not give up. Too many people give up when it gets a little tough, Raquel. And that's unfortunate, because it gets a little hard. People give up. Oh, I spent $500. You went to a 4-year school and you spent $150,000 when you were 18, 19, 20, and 21. Such a good point. How stupid is that? You've never had a real job. You spent $100,000+, $200,000, $300,000. You got a 4-year degree that taught you nothing about business, nothing about finances, nothing about marketing, nothing about processes and systems, from somebody who's never done it before. And then you hire your first coach. You spend $5,000 or $6,000, $10,000 for the year. It wasn't exactly what you expected. And you say, I'm done with coaching. They all suck. When the masters of the game, Tony Robbins, our coach, you have a coach, I have a coach. Kobe Bryant had multiple coaches. Michael Jordan had multiple coaches. They had coaches outside of the team. They had coaches.
My kids have coaches outside of their coaches, right?
And you spend $10,000 and you say it didn't work, and you say it doesn't work and coaching sucks because you didn't do the work, because you were overwhelmed, busy, lazy, right? It's like people going to the gym. Gyms don't work. No, you don't work, sweetheart. You keep eating Twinkies and you talk at the gym and you don't work out and you gain weight. And then you say the gym doesn't work. No, honey buns. You got to move your butt.
This is the perfect segue, because you and I are both coaches, is when you look at entrepreneurs that have had massive success, what would you say contributed to their growth?
Being okay failing, being okay making bad choices, being okay saying that money I spent was an investment into my future education. being okay not being right all the time, being okay asking for help. I'm the first person to raise my hand and ask a question that everybody might know the answer to. But if I don't know the answer, Raquel, I need it. And there's things that I learned last year, but I wasn't in the position to implement them. And I need to be refreshed on it. And I don't care if people are like, Vikram's an idiot, or Vikram asks dumb questions, or Vikram monopolizes the microphone. It's why I have a $700 microphone set up, so that when I talk a lot on the calls, at least I don't sound horribly like pingy and stuff. So I'm like, at least I'm doing you guys a service by investing in the microphone setup. So at least I sound better, because I will monopolize the call as much as they give me the opportunity to. And people are scared to speak up. You take me to a live event, I'm raising my hand. I'm getting on stage. I'm going to meet the people. Yeah. Because then people want to connect with you. Be vulnerable, right? Be vulnerable, be open, and be okay not being right. Like that's the greatest part about life, is that when you go through, like when I've reinvented myself multiple times now in this world. I've spent time in jail. I've spent time as a divorced man, right? I've done a lot of really awesome things. I've done a lot of really stupid things. And every time I reinvented myself, and that ability to reinvent yourself and realize that I'm not going to take the job for somebody that I love, but I'm going to do my own thing in a time when most people would not bet on themselves, is because I reinvented myself. And I know that I'm going to make mistakes, but I also know that Colonel Sanders, Henry Ford, right? A lot of the people that we touted as multi-billionaires are very successful, started later on in life. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, let's get this party started, baby.
Yeah. So on the flip side, what do you think the biggest challenge you see entrepreneurs make that hinder their growth? Because you coach a lot of people. And if you could go back, right, even as you were coaching, if you could go back and give our audience some advice, what do you think stops them from growing, even when they do hire a coach, or their biggest challenge?
So Tony Robbins talks about the 6 human needs. And one of the human needs that we need, but if it's our number one need, can really hold us back, and that's significance. We all need to feel significant. We all need to feel important. But if that's our number one driver, that we must be correct, we must be right, it's leading from ego. And there's times where you need ego, because ego's going to drive you forward, right? Like sometimes I'm like, I've done it before, I'm going to do it again. And I want everybody, like, I want to be famous, right? I tell everybody that I want to be famous, right? So if you guys are listening to this and you want to help me get famous, please hit me up. But you have to have the humility to say, hey, when I also got told by the guys at the project to go home and we don't want to sit at dinner with you, and you got to ring the bell 3 times and quit, I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, is this the man I want to be? Is this the man that I want to teach my future children to be? Is this the man that is going to show up and attract the woman that he wants in his life? And it wasn't. And so you have to you have to have humility. You have to realize that there's always a better way out there. Even Amazon has a better way of doing business. Tesla has a better way of doing business. You have to realize that you can learn from everybody. I have a family member who's a multi-billionaire with the B, not M, like multi-billionaire. He's always learning. He's always improving. He answers the phones on Saturday. And I'm like, why do you do that? He said, it's my business. I need to know what the pulse of it is. You have to realize that failure is just an opportunity to learn. You have to realize that no matter what happens, it's going to get better. You have to realize that you are a champion, and you got to be disciplined. And, I'd say the biggest thing that entrepreneurs need to realize is that they don't need to have all the answers, but they need to know where to find the answers that they need.
Oh my gosh, you have dropped so many words of wisdom, so many nuggets. It's been amazing to have you on our show today. And before we wrap up, it's one question that I ask every single one of our guests is, what's one thing that Vikram does to play bigger in business and in life?
Raquel, first off, I got to give you props that you keep these things to 30 minutes. Like, it's amazing because I'm like, I'm just warmed up over here. So your question, what is one thing that I do to play bigger?
Mm-hmm.
I would say it starts with your evening and morning routines. If
Mm-hmm.
you can win your night, you will win your morning. And if you can win your morning, you can win your day. And if you can win your day, you win the week. And if you win the week, you win the month. And if you win the month, you win the quarter, the year, and your life. Don't neglect the people that you're working for. So a lot of people say, I'm doing this all for my family, but you never see your family. So when you build your schedule around the life that you want, and then let the work fill in. But if you can win the evenings and you can win the mornings, you have a much higher success chance, because most millionaires I know wake up between 4 and 5 o'clock. Most people that I know that are not millionaires wake up between 7 and 9 o'clock. And if you do the math on people saying, I don't have time, you have time, you're just not utilizing it the way that you should be. So if you can win your evening, and it's literally what we talked about earlier. You're like, I'm getting on a consistent night routine where I go to sleep at the same time I wake up, because when I saw you yesterday and I saw you today, I was like, Raquel's got a glow about her that like I haven't noticed in a while. And you're like, oh, my HRV's up. And so you have more energy.
Nerds like that. Talking about wellness. Well, you can't have peak performance without great health.
So that's where it starts. And so if you can win your evening and you can win your mornings, then you're going to win your life. And it comes with discipline. And it's not that you're missing out on stuff. You actually end up with more time to do the stuff you want. And you don't have FOMO when you're doing it. So you're not going to be the realtor on the beach with her laptop out, sending out contracts, screaming at the assistant while the family's screaming at you to come in the water. And you're feeling pulled both ways, and you're not enjoying your work and you're not enjoying your day. And so really, like, that self-mastery component is one of the most important things. And you're not going to be an effective leader if you can't master yourself, because how can you tell other people to do things that you aren't able to do yourself? It's like the doctor that weighs 300 pounds saying, oh yeah, you need to change your diet. I'm like, I don't think I need to listen to you. Like, I'm in such better shape than you are. Like, how can you be the person telling me what to do on that front?
Yeah. So, I love that. Self-mastery to playing bigger. Where can people connect with you, Vikram?
Yeah, I love Instagram, Coach Vikram Deol. That's kind of, if you send me a message there, I respond pretty quickly. If you email me, send me like 36 more.
Thank you so much for being on the show today, Vikram. If you have enjoyed my interview with him, please share it on Instagram and tag Coach Vikram Deol and leave us a review. We'll also put his handle in the show notes. I appreciate having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.